Give me one.
No, Henry Morgan,
Morning's in progress.
Huh? Okay.
All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Daf Dalet, is recommended here. We could try it. Maybe we'll go 6:45 on Sunday. 6:45, yeah. We might need a little extra time. So 6:45.
Oh, right.
Remember to go ahead and reschedule your clock. So we left off yesterday on Daf Dalet, the top. So we had a Mishnah, and so the Mishnah basically says, and the Mishnah, we basically introduced a brisa, which one says he is a Nazir from only one of the aspects of Nazirus. Rabbi Shimon says it's nothing until he's Nadu Mikulam, and the Rabbanan say no, even if he's Nazar, or he makes a net from one of them, then it's all of them. And then they each bring up psukim. And then they want to, so then they ask, Rabbi Shimon, what do you do with the pasuk of the Rabbanans? They said, no, they do it to Aser that you might think even wine, right? That was, let's say, originally, he was Machayev himself through a nether to go ahead and drink wine. So maybe there's a mitzvah to drink this wine. So Kamash Malon, then no, the Nazirus overrides that. So that was where we left off. Now we are 3 lines, 4th line from the top, first word.
And away.
So we say, Rabbanan Ami, Homi Boile Loser Yain Mitzvah Ki Yain Mishus. The Rabbanan don't. They also required that. Let's say a person makes a nether to go ahead and drink this bottle of wine, and then the next day he makes a Nazirus. So how do you know that overrides it? So he says, Im Kain Lemakra Me Yain. My v'shechar. What's the double lashon of Yain v'shechar? So Shemina Tarti, you can learn both. Right, both is drasha that even if you make a nazirus from one aspect, it's a full nazirus, and number 2 that it overrides even any yain that was a mitzvah for him to go ahead and consume. Rabbi Shimon, why does it say sheichar? So it says sheichar lemikdash to go ahead and make a limud, right? To learn sheichar from the mikdash, make a gzer shava. The chsiv it says over there by us v'yam sheichar al. It says wine and sheikhah should not go ahead and drink. So eat fun. So you and your sons and none of the kohanim should go ahead and drink any yayin v'sheichar. So ma gabi nazir yayin hudelisar aval shamashkin lo. Just like by nazir, it's only wine and it's not other types. It's not other intoxicating drinks. It's only wine. So too. Right? And so too, by the mikdash, it's only yain v'sheichar similar to that of Nazir. It's just by Nazir, it's only wine and not any let's say any other intoxicating drinks. So too, by the mikdash. I guess you could say that the Rabbanan would hold like the other shita of like which would exclude Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya is learned in Brisa. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Achal devela kilois v'shasa devash v'chalav. Person goes ahead and eats pressed fig cakes, or he drinks honey or milk or something else that makes him drowsy and intoxicated. The nichnas lemikdash, he enters into the temple, then he is chayiv. Then he is chayiv. For entering the mikdash while intoxicated, and that's different than Rabbi Shimon that says no, it's just wine, which is like a nazir, or iba yisema, or we can go back that which we said earlier, right? So the reason why Rabbi Shimon says he's only chayiv until actually yazir mikulam. So iba yisema, Rabbi Shimon less like iser chal al iser. He has no iser chal al iser. In other words, if one already has an isser or some other mitzvah to go ahead and drink wine, so therefore, it's ein isser chal isser. The Tanya, good in Brisa, Rav Shimon Aimer ha'eichel nevela b'yom kippurim pater. One who goes ahead and eats nevela, right? Which nevela was usser on Erev Yom Kippur, and the day before that, so it was always usser this nevela, and therefore, when he goes ahead and consumes that in Yom Kippurim, he would not be chayiv for Yom Kippurim. He's pater if he eats it, goes ahead and he eats it, the shogeg, right?
Aren't you for the more stringent thing first?
But over here is shogeg. He'd be chayiv a korban. He's not chayiv miso because he did it accidentally, right? So over here, So we gotta turn mute, right? So we say over here in this case, he is Pater. So according to Rabbi Shimon, we see that Rabbi Shimon normally holds a case. Rabbi Shimon normally holds it a case when one is Isser Chal Isser, he is Pater, doesn't work. So maybe in this case also. So Rabbi Shimon says no. In this case, that it's different. The pasuk comes to teach you that one is chayiv for nazirs. Rabbanan Nami Haksi Mikola. Now let's go to the pasuk of that Rabbi Shimon uses. So Rabbi Shimon's original source of the you can't just do partial, right? So Rabbi Shimon learns the pasuk Mikola Shir Yasem Gefen Ayam Echartzanim Yadzag. So he says, what does he do? The pasuk Mikola Shir Yasem Gefen Ayayin. So I'm the Rabbanan Hasam over there. Limit al Isri Nazir. She would start from Zem Zeh. What is it over there? He looks at the combination. In order for one to be chayiv malchus for violating his naziras, he has to have a shear, right? He has to have a shear of kazayis, and over there you can go ahead and you can add. He had some skins, he had some seeds, he had some juice, whatever it was. You add it together to become a shear, and therefore that's what does the pasuk of Mikol Asher Yasa. They combine any consumption of any of these great products to become to be shear to be chayiv. Rabbi Shimon, less like sirf. However, Rabbi Shimon, the reason I argue is because he doesn't hold you need sirf. Why? The time Rabbi Shimon Aimer, kol shehu l'makos. When it comes to the shirim for the Torah to violate, he holds that not even chat shir a kol shu any amount. You don't need a certain obligation. In other words, so therefore, you don't need to say, hey, you add all the skins and the grape seeds together, you get a shear. Why? Because even a small amount of either one of them would be mechayiv malchus. And why? Because he holds Amar Kazayis Elin Karban. Because that which we say one needs a Kazayis is only when it comes to an obligation of bringing a Karban, right? Nothing to do with the for the zeros for being a Chatas, right? It has to do with that's by Malchus. That which they ashir is only by Karban, which is not applicable in this case, and therefore Rabbi Shimon argues and uses the pasuk differently than the Rabbanan. And they hold it's not for tziruf. Rather, it comes to teach you that you have to go ahead and make a nazirus from all aspects of a nazir to become a nazir. Fine. Now Mishnah. Mishnah says, Hareini Kashimshin. One who says, I am like Shimshin, right? Reference to those of you who learn Tanakh, right? Unlike myself. Could probably tell a little more than Shimshin, but he was the Sultan, right? So he is so Shimshin was a Nazir. So he says, Harei Shimshin, I am like Shimshin. Or he says, and Rashi says, even if he says, included that Ben Menayach, or Shimshin Ben Menayach was his name. So if he says, I'm Shimshin, Ben Menayach, Kabal Delilah, or if he says the husband of Delilah, Kamisha Akor Delazar's Azar, he who went ahead and destroyed the doors of Azah, or he who had his eyes poked out, right, by the Plishtim, Harei Zeh Nazir Shimshin. All of this.
Shimshin because he was from Bern.
We'll see. Let's see in the Gemara. We're going to discuss. So Harei Zeh, let's see. So Harei Zeh Nazir Shimshin. This person is like a Nazir Shimshin. So let's see the Gemara first. First, the Gemara gives a little shot in this Mishnah, because the Mishnah is not explained as the way it's the simple pashtus is read. So Lavali the Mista Kohani is Kohalan. Why do you have to say all these? Tzricha, you need it. If a person just says, I am like Shimshin, Havi Amino, I would have thought Shimshin Achrina. Maybe it's referring to another Shimshin Bashuk, right? So another guy's name Shimshin, nothing to do with the biblical individual. So Kamash Malon, Kebem Menayach. Therefore he says, Shimshin, Kebem Menayach, right? Even both of them together. Vitali Kebem Menayach. And if they just say Kebem Menayach, a person says Shimshin Menayach, maybe there's people who is also called Shimshin Ben Ayach. So Kamash Malon, therefore it says Kabal Delilah, Krishaka Pelishtim, Esainav, and therefore it says the other three. Even if a person says Hareini Kishimshin Ben Menayach, he still has to add in something that was unique about Shimshin Ben Menayach, such as who he was married to, or what he did, or what was done to him, and then that would refer to Shimshin from
Shimshin Ben Sarah.
That would be somebody else. So therefore, that would not be Nazirus. So now let's see the next Mishnah. So Ma Bei Nazir Olam and Nazir Shimshin. What is the difference between a Nazir Olam and Nazir Shimshin? So Nazir Olam, a person is a Nazir Olam. Hikmid Sa'arai make a matar. If his hair gets long, gets heavy on him, he can go ahead and lighten it with a razor. Well, maybe shleish behemais. then he has to go ahead and bring 3 karbanos, like one who becomes tamei, right? Like a regular person, and hichmitz, and he goes tamei, maybe karban tuma, right? Then he brings a karban tuma. Let's see, Rashi, 1 second. Fine. All right. So every time he would go ahead and he would cut his hair, he would have to go ahead and bring 3 karbanos, achatas oil and a shlamim, right? And then so too, one who goes ahead and it becomes tamei, he has to go ahead and bring his maybe karban tuma. That is a nazir olam. However, but he has to go back to becoming a nazir. And nazir shimshon, however, nazir shimshon, hich mitzara ein makeup. His hair becomes heavy, does not go ahead and can't trim it. If he goes tamei, he does not bring a karban tuma.
Absalom was a korban.
So let's see. Very good. So let's see. So Nazir Eilam. So it's like the Gemara. So Nazir Eilam, the man Karshmei. Who's talking about the Nazir Eilam? We talked about Nazir Shimshon in the previous mission, and all of a sudden you start comparing Nazir Eilam to Nazir Shimshon. What are you talking about? So Gemara says, "No, Chasur Mechsa." Really, the mission is missing a part. Here's how it should read. Ha'aymer hareini Nazir Eilam. If one says, "Behold, I'm a Nazir Eilam," then Harei is a Nazir Eilam. Then he is a Nazir Eilam. And then Ma be Nazir Eilam and Nazir Shimshon. Now, what is doing in Nazir Eilam, which is mentioned in this Mishnah, Nazir Shimshon for the previous Mishnah? So Nazir Eilam ichbit zaramekel b'tar maybe shleish behemais v'nitma maybe karban tuma. When it comes to a Nazir Eilam, if his hair becomes long, he can go ahead and trim it with a razor. Then he brings 3 karbanos with it. Then it becomes tamei. He also has to bring karbanos, like one who's a tamei. And Nazir Shimshon, however, Nazir Shimshon, hichmid sa'ara, if his hair becomes heavy, eina makeup, he can't go ahead and trim it. The eino maybe karban tuma. He can't go ahead, and he's not. He does not go ahead and bring a karban tuma.
That was his.
Maybe karban tuma. Fine. Now korban who? So the Gemara points out. So karban who do maisi. So he says by Nazir Shimshon, right, that he doesn't bring a karban who do maisi about naziros chalal, right? But it seems to be that he would have a prohibition to become tamei. He's not allowed to become tamei, right? It's only the aspect of bringing the karbanos Nazir Shimshon. He doesn't have to bring karbanos, but it still sounds like it's also for him to become tamei. So mani masnisen. So whose opinion is our Mishnah? So like Rabbi Yehuda, like Rabbi Shimon. It's not like either one of, not like Rabbi Yehuda and not like Rabbi Shimon. Why is that? So let's see the brisa. The Tanya, we're learning a brisa. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Nazir Shimshon, mutter li tamei l'meisim. It's mutter for him to become tamei meisim. Shechem atzina b'Shimshon shenita, because we find out Shimshon, was the point out the later of the Amud, that he became tamei. Very good. Yeah, we'll sit right. Rabbi Shimshon Aimer, excuse me, Rabbi Shimon Aimer, and Rabbi Shimon says, Ha'aimer Nazir Shimshon lo yamar klum. One who says, I'm a Nazir Shimshon, he has not said anything. Why? We don't find that Shimshon himself says, he was Makabel, it was not Dover Anitvas. It wasn't something that he declared, right? It was from birth, right? It wasn't something that he declared. So since it wasn't declared, right, it's not Dover Hanidor, right? It's not considered something that was basically became Asur or became a Nazir through a Neder. And therefore, if you go ahead and you attach your Nazirus to something that wasn't, right, Davar Hanidor, something that was intrinsically Asur, and not something that was Davar Hanita, something that became Asur through a declaration. So therefore, that's nothing. So therefore, Rabbi Shimon says, you say it's Namsa Shimshon, it's nothing. Mm-hmm. So our Mishnah is not like either one. Why? Money. Rabbi Yehuda. If it's Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda seems to say Nazir Shimshon can become Tamei L'Chatchila. There's no problem becoming Tamei. Our Mishnah seems to say, right? Our Mishnah seems to say if he becomes Tamei, he doesn't have to bring Karbanos. But it sounds like you can't become Tamei, right? And Rabbi Yehuda says you can become Tamei L'Chatchila. It's no problem. You can take a shortcut through a cemetery. Our Tana seems to say if you become Tamei, you don't bring Karbanos. But it sounds like it's still us to become Tamei. And Rabbi Shimon, and if our Mishnah is like Rabbi Shimon, he says, if one says Hareini Nazir Shimshon, it doesn't work at all. Our Mishnah seems to say he is a Nazir.
So I have a question regarding Nazirut itself.
Yeah.
The reason that you give that if you have a town, if you become a town, you bring korban. The reason is, what is the cheshivut? Is now you're starting again or the korban? You see what I'm
Right,
saying?
yeah. So
You
have- right. So over here, so it's for violating. Yeah, it's really for violating that which you've done,
Oh,
and you have to start again. You
So-
violated what you
so
were
Nazir
was
Olam
doing.
starting again is an issue,
So-
but it's a violation.
Right. Yes, the violation. But over here, the violation ought to be the karbanos. So Gemara says the other Rabbi Yehuda. Really, Amish is like Rabbi Yehuda. So if that's the case, so it should have said you become tamei. Why does it say you don't have to bring karbanos? I liel Rabbi Yehudi. The idea tani gabi nazir eilach initma. So therefore it says initma. So if he becomes tamei, he has to bring karbanos. Tananami gabi nazir shimshon initma. Therefore it says also by nazir shimshon says the same way. If he becomes tamei, he doesn't have to bring karbanos. But in truth, he's allowed to become tamei, right? So therefore, I would say our mission is Rabbi Yehuda. Now, around 25% of the way down. Lema and Dalanam Beis, Lema bepluksa dahani tonight. Let's say this machlekes of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, in terms of whether a davar hanitfas is really like the hani tonight. There's other tonight machlekes tonight. The Tanan we learned in the Mishnah. Hare alai kibachor. Person says, let's say this piece of meat is also to me like the meat of a bechor, right, which is supposed to be given, offered if it's tar. So Rabbi Yaakov says, now you've basically made this piece of meat davar hanidor into basically another. Huh? No. We're not talking about one that was, let's say, if it had no blemish, it gets offered. Right? I'm talking it's offered. Only if it doesn't, then it goes to the coat. Right, the Kohen can keep it. Right, but over here, right, we're talking about it has to be offered. Right, so therefore he says. It's something that it's a carbon like this. So Yaakov Aiser, he says, yeah, that's a full-fledged nether. Rabbi Yossi Mater. Rabbi Yossi says you haven't said anything. Why? Because according to Rabbi Yossi, that since a bechor is born with kedusha, it's not considered davar hanidor as something that became kadosh by making a nether, right? So therefore, since it was born with intrinsic kedusha, you can't go ahead and say this other item is another because it's considered davar that was already the kedusha from the time it was born. So my lab, Rabbi Yehuda Savar, look Rabbi Yaakov. Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rabbi Yaakov. They can even use basically another something that's davar that was from kedusha from its birth, just like Nazir Shimshon. A davar like Beni and davar hanidor. He says you don't required to attach it to something that was davar hanidor. Rabbi Shimon Savar like Rabbi Yossi, davar Beni and davar hanidor, and Rabbi Shimon hold like Rabbi Yossi, who says that no. That since a bechor doesn't work, why? Because it was born with kedusha. So to Shimshon was born with kedusha, you can't nitfas a nazir to that. The answer is low. No, the kuli alabina and davar neither. Really, you need something that's davar neither. But why bechor is different? Shani got bechor dechsiv be la Hashem. It says the extra word, the pasuk by Nadam says la Hashem le rabos is a bechor to include a bechor. That even if one says not only this piece of meat. Right, there's like a carbon, but he said even this piece of meat is like a bechor. That is included. That's even though it's not a davar hanidor because it's born with kedusha. Nevertheless, such a nether would be chal. Rabbi Yossi Amalcha. Why is it? And Rabbi Yossi would say, it says la Hashem. So he says no. How shall we boilate le rabbis chatas v'ashem to include a chatas v'ashem? If one would say this animal, this piece of meat is also to me like a chatas or an asham, that is also that going to the word Hashem. That's how nether works. Why? Why do you need to include chatas v'yasham? Because chatas and asham, first of all, a person can't go ahead and bring an adava as a chatas. He can't say, I'm just going to go ahead and bring a chatas. I'm going to go bring an asham, right? You have to be obligated to do it. So if you're obligated to do it, maybe there's a tzad to say, right, that you can't go ahead and since I can't bring an adava, I also can't use a nether to attach a nether to that, right? Because the pasuk says, where's the pasuk where it says la Hashem? Right, it says each kiyid or another la Hashem or yishia shvul as so nafshay. Right, so that was the pasuk. So over there, maybe it's not referring to chatas Hashem. So therefore, it says Rabbi Yossi includes chatas Hashem and excludes bechor. So why is that? Mar beni chatas v'Hashem shechein nitvasim beneder. But motzin is a bechor shein matis beneder because really a chatas Hashem even though I can't bring a nadava, I can't bring a voluntary chatas Hashem. But once I'm obligated to bring a chatas Hashem, I have to go ahead and find the animal and designate the animal. This animal is now a chatas. Since I designate that, therefore a nether works with a chatas Hashem and not a bechor. Rabbi Yaakov Amalcha, bechor nami matvisa beneder who. Really, a bechor, it is matis beneder. The Tanya right? Because we learned in the Brisa, Shabeis Rabbeinu Amru. So he said over there, Minayin l'noila lo b'chor b'sech edro shemitz alav lakdishay. So he says, no, it's also considered to be a davar hanitfas. Why is that? Because it says over there in the Brisa, how do we know that when an animal is born in someone's house, b'chor b'sech beis, in his pen, that's a mitzvah for them to be makdishit? Shnamar, Pasuk says, Hazachar takdish, right? That the zachar, the male, shall be sanctified. So you see, it's a mitzvah to go ahead and sanctify it. So therefore, it's considered to be davar hanidor. Rabbi Yosef Lecha, yes. Rabbi Yosef would answer, yes. Nehid the mitzvah lakdish. You're right. Granted, it's a mitzvah to go ahead and be makdish. However, ilo makdish le milo kadosh, right? But if you don't do it, if you don't sanctify it, lamais it's still kadosh. It's just a mitzvah to go ahead and do it, but it's still sanctified. So therefore, it's not considered to be a davar hanidor, and therefore. Unless the pasuk includes bechor, I would not be able to attach a nether to a piece of meat and say it's like a bechor. And nazir nami haksiv lashem. By nazir also says lashem, right? It says each kiyafli nino nazir lazir lashem. So no, we never something else. The Kedatanya, like it was learned in Brisa. Rabbi Shimon Tzadik says Rabbi Shimon Tzadik. Miyamai le'achalti Hashem nazir tamei chutz me'adam echad. Right, I never went ahead and participated or ate from the meat of an Hashem nazir who became tamei, except for one person. Shabbat Minadarim is a nazir. He came from the south. And Yafeinayim v'toiv roiv because this is of Sidurus light Hatalim, and he had nice eyes. He's very handsome. And he had nice, beautiful, long hair. Samartila b'ni ma rois l'shachei ser no. Right? Why did you become a nazir and basically have to, shave off all, ultimately his beautiful hair? So Zalmerli, he says, Roya, I used to be a shepherd, the Abi for my father, Be'iri, Lisha B'mayim in Amayim, and I went to go ahead and draw water from the spring. And I looked at my my reflection in the water. And then my Yetzirah grasped me. Right now it says, you're so handsome. And it says, hey, let's go do some averas, right? With these looks, I can go ahead and get some women. So Martilo, so I said to my reflection, to myself, to my Yitzhahara, Reika, right? Empty one. Why do you go ahead and have such, you're trying to enjoy, right, things of this world and take advantage of things of this world, right? Right? In the end, right, you're only going to end up in the dirt and have worms go through you, right? My goodness, the Shemayim. So I'm going to go ahead and shave my hair and remove these looks so I don't have my Yetzer anymore for the sake of heaven. So
that's not
grow it out, right? So, but ultimately he is going to go ahead and at least 30 days. So ultimately he's going to go ahead and shave, remove all his hair for the Shem Shemayim. So this was said to Rabbi because he wanted to cut off not just for that, he wanted to do the Shem Shemayim. So he said, so this was done by Shimon Tzadik. So Amarti, so he got up and Ishtati al Raisho, and the kiss says, Amarti like Kamaischa Yerbu Nazir b'Yisrael. You be more Nazirim like you in Yisrael, because normally a person brings his karbanos tuma, right? He all of a sudden, oh no, I got to do another 30 days. So he's upset about it. But over here, he was an individual who did it. His Naziris was the Shem Shemayim. So he says, Balacha Alecha Kasav. While he says, Amir ki ish ki afli lindo and neder nazir lazir la Hashem. That's la Hashem. And you have to have the right intentions. That's what the pasuk means. Mm-hmm. Now, going back on our historic discussion, the Shimshon lav nazir havi, right? When it says Shimshon, he did not go ahead and declare the Naziris. He wasn't declared Naziris. V'aksiv ki nazir elokim yahanar min abeten. It says over there that from birth, right? Then they will go ahead and they will declare him. They will make him, right? So hastam malachu to kamar. Over there was a malach. In other words, it wasn't an individual who basically said that when he's born, that, okay, now you're a Nazir. Rather, it was a declaration by a malach, and therefore was not considered to be davar hanidor. Uminala, now this goes back to what Alan was pointing out, the Itmal, the Mason. And where do we see? That it became Tommy Mason. If it's with the bone, right, killed 1,000 people. So Dilba, maybe he threw the bone and killed him. He wasn't near them to become Tomei. So Alamihacho here says Vayachmehem Shleishim Ish. He killed them 30 people. Vayikaches Chlutasam. Then he removed right the garments from them. So he's after they were dead, he removed the garments. He became Tomei then. Dilma Ashlichun Bereisha. Maybe they removed their clothing first, the other Katlinan, and then he killed them. No, but the question before was maybe there was no that he became tummy. So we see that Nazir Shimshon was no problem become tummy, right?
I've seen the Tanakh and talk about after the come.
So right, but we right. So right now we're not going the aspect of bringing the karbanos after. Rather, it was it even us? Right? You know, was there a violation of that? So because we wanted to say before Nazir Shimshon, we see that he was kept tummy, right? So it says vayach vayikach sid. It says he killed him and then he took. So it sounds like he killed him first, and then he took it. So obviously, he did, if the clothes were off before that, he couldn't take them first. So Dilma geises in Shavina. Maybe they were geises. Maybe they weren't completely dead. He hit them and they were dying. He removed the clothes and then they died, and therefore there was no tumo. So Ella Gemara Kamirila. Rather, we have a tradition that he became tummy. The Nazir Olam Heicha. And where's the Nazir Olam? See if it says the Tanya Rabbi Yomer Avshalom Nazir Olam Havi. Right, that was a tradition that we know that Avshalom was the Nazir Olam Havi. Shneimar Zebazir says Vayimi Kates Arbim Shana. Then 40 years Vayim Avshalom Elamelech Elcha Avshalom is Nazir. Right after 40 years, he said, "Let me go ahead and fulfill my neder." Asher nadarti laHashem b'Chevron. That which I was nadir laHashem b'Chevron. We see, even though he's Nazir Olam, nevertheless, he used to go ahead and get a haircut once a year. He would lighten his hair. Everyone says, right? So the pasuk over there says, right? It says over there regarding cutting his hair, and it says, right? So it says over there days when he lightened his hair, right? When he's megalech, and then he was a Nazir Olam. The Yalev, we learned just the top of the page, is the couple lines. The Yalev, Yami, Mibat Erichaima. We learned because there says Yami by Bat Erichaima by the house of a walled city. Then Allah Chazir, but over there it's 12 months. So it's over here when it says Yamim, it means he lightened his hair with a razor every 12 months. Mahas and Yibes Chaydesh, Havkani, Yibes Chaydesh, over there was 12 months. So over here 12 months. And Rabbi Nuraya, no, Megalech Achas Shashim Yom, once every 30 days. And Rabbi Yisrael, Megalech, Me'erev Shabbos, Le'erev Shabbos. Right now it was every Friday he would lighten his hair. We find by princes, the sons of kings, that they would also go ahead and cut their hair once a week. And we'll get into that on Sunday. Everyone have a wonderful Shabbos. 6:45.